Hey YouTube. So as I sit down and make this video, I'm going to try to get you guys to understand a little more clearly what these 2025 regulations may bring. I've looked at a couple of different sources, but basically what they want to bring, without a doubt, is they want to get rid of bicycle failures that are causing accidents and deaths. E-bikes are typically a lot heavier than regular bikes. They have the battery, which is weight dense, and the other components that add weight to the bikes. Now the problem is all bikes sold in the U.S. have some kind of testing done to them, and it's all been voluntary up to this point. The manufacturers do their own test. Trek, for example, has a stress machine that simulates heavy rider riding their bikes over a period of time or miles, and they know what components will hold up and which will fail. So bikes from China don't go through a certification process. E-bikes specifically. They pull parts off the shelf. A lot of their testing is based on the engineering specs of metal versus actual testing. A good example is the stem on the electric. I've seen 6 or 7 failures on them stems, where on a regular bike I rarely see a stem failure. You might strip out a bolt or you might strip a thread out of it, but it's not going to fail because the material failed. Whereas electric stem usually fails at the weld around the bottom of it, and you see these people that turn the stems around. Now we're putting the stress at a different place that it isn't designed to be. So there was no testing. So you're taking, a lot of people assume that their e-bike parts were tested to some standard and are designed for their e-bikes, but they're not. They're designed for a regular bike that's retrofitted onto an electric bike, grabbing parts off the shelves and saying, we're not going to worry about whether it's designed for this bike or meant to be used on a heavy bike. We're just going to put it on the bike. If it fails, it fails. It'll probably fail after the warranty period, and they don't have no responsibility to fix it after that. So there's a lot of proprietary parts that they've taken and designed something for the bike that can be really finicky or not well designed and fails. Folding frame bikes have more failure points than a regular frame bike. They have that finicky latch on the side of the electrics. It is finicky. If it's just not adjusted just perfectly, that latch can open up. You know what happens when that latch opens up? You're thinking, oh, it'll stay put. The frame will unfold. It unfolds. You'll be going down the trail. I know from experience. The front will be going one direction and the back will be going the other. And if you don't stop quickly, you're going to end up in a serious crash. And who knows, maybe that bike will pinch you when it comes flying on you and take a chunk out of you. So it's kind of dangerous. So if your latch is not just perfect, it can be a serious failure point. So consider that. So the 2025 regulations want to bring testing specific to e-bike parts. So if it's taken off a regular bike design and put on an e-bike, it has to have its own testing. You can't use that. It's certified on a regular bike. Now that it's been moved to an e-bike, it has to be tested. Stems, seat post, frames, uh, crank arms, uh, all those parts and brakes have to be tested on that e-bike to make sure that they meet specifications. Up to this point, they use the same specification on a regular bike as they did an e-bike. The brake sizes are too small for the e-bikes. A lot of those 90, 100-pound bikes are using brakes designed for a bike that weighs under 40 pounds. And when you add all that extra weight, your brakes don't work like they're supposed to. So they're going to force e-bike manufacturers to they're going to develop a standard and make them meet that standard when it comes to brakes, stems, handlebars, seat posts, crank arms, crank bearings, and on this case there is no bottom bracket, but bottom brackets. And then the brakes and lights are not a requirement, so they don't really talk about that. So, of course, they're talking about making the regulations covering what the class set of classes may be and what is considered a class 1 as far as torque and motor output and speed and everything. The EU standard to me is a little extreme, but it may come down to that. I've had hundreds of comments from people in Europe about this, and they said their standards are so extreme that people don't consider e-bikes sometimes because 15 miles an hour may be slower than they go on a regular bike. So they've really are trying to get their governments to change them to 20 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour being a reasonable standard. I don't think that a bike that can go 35 or 40 miles an hour should be on a bike trail ever. They should be out on the road. And I hear people saying, well, they can't keep up with traffic. They don't need to keep up with traffic. The traffic needs to be aware of the bicycles. So you put all these fancy flashing lights and everything on them, and hopefully you don't get ran over. But in America, drivers are so rude, so self-centered, don't care about the next guy, that if they see a bike, you never know if they're aiming for you or not. Well, yeah, it's going to require a culture change. I think people don't realize that within 10 years, the average American is going to be priced out of their cars, insurance. The government keeps on adding electrical devices to monitor cars, to make cars more what they perceive more safe and more expensive. So it started out in the 80s when they first came up with the third brake light, and it's been going since. They keep adding more and more safety items that are required by manufacturers, and the cars have gotten so expensive, so complicated to make and repair, that I think we'll be priced out of, me included, will be priced out of cars. And then we're going to either be relying on public transportation or micro-mobility transportation, like our bicycles, our mopeds, our small motorcycles. And we're going to be stuck on those streets, riding with those cars of the rich people, because we won't be the ones that can afford them anymore. It's a sad state, but that's the way it's going. The government, every time somebody tries to make a cheap car, the government complicates it. Every time somebody tries to make a cheap electric bike, they complicate it, and this is another complication. As when they set the standards, e-bike manufacturers are going to have to start testing equipment on buying test equipment and making e-bikes more safe. Germany, you can buy a bike that has ABS on it, ABS braking, that keeps the tires from skidding. Yeah, it's supposed to make the bike safer. Whether it is or not is beyond me. I have never rode a bike with ABS, and I don't think I need it. But for some reason, there's people in Germany that think they need ABS, so it's been developed. Bosch makes it, and there's a couple of manufacturers that are making this ABS system for their bikes. It's another point of failure. What happens when your ABS stops working? Hopefully your brakes will still work. But to make this clear, the regulation is more about making bikes safer than regulating speed and how far they can go or how fast they can go. That's a component of it, but the main part is making the bike safer so they have less deaths by equipment failure. That's all I have for today. The channel is growing. We're up to 1,250 last check. So we've had almost 300 new subscribers this year. We're getting to the point that we've met the requirements for monetization, and that some of those commercials that you're forced to watch the videos, I might get a bump for doing it. It ain't gonna be much. At 1,250, I doubt I would see $5-6 a month from it. I know it's nothing. It's more than I got before, but it may actually bring some sponsors to the channel where we can get some more bikes and more bike stuff to get tested, so you know whether or not it's safe to buy. If I weigh 275 right now, at 275 dressed, can make a good test of a product and tell you that you're safe to ride it if you're heavy, then maybe it'll be worth the extra look at the channel, and more people will subscribe. Since the average American nowadays is heavier than they were any time in the past, maybe we can get some testing out of it. There's been some rude comments about I should be on a regular bike, and those people don't watch the videos to the end, so they won't know this. I'm a disabled veteran. I'm completely disabled, and an e-bike is my only solution to ride a bike. If I had to ride a non-electrified bicycle, I probably wouldn't be. You wouldn't be seeing these videos. So, that being said, like, subscribe. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I try to answer each one, even if it's just a like or a short comment, but I do try to answer them all. Have a great day.